Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, tossing them into vending machines, parking meters, or leaving them forgotten in old jars, completely unaware that some of these seemingly ordinary coins could be worth absolutely staggering amounts of money. Today, we're diving deep into a coin that has collectors, investors, and everyday people frantically searching through their change with magnifying glasses and hope in their hearts. The 1970 quarter dollar, a coin that has recently been valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $380 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $380 million for a single quarter that was minted in Denver over half a century ago. And before you think this sounds too good to be true, stick with me because the story behind this coin is absolutely fascinating, and I promise you, the coins coming up after this one are even more jaw-dropping, with values that will make your head spin and stories that sound like they came straight out of a treasure hunter's wildest dreams. So make sure you stay until the very end, because what's coming next will blow your mind even more. Now, let's talk about why the 1970 quarter has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 1970 was a transformative time in America. The country was navigating through social change, the Vietnam War was still raging, and the Apollo 13 mission had just captured the world's attention with its dramatic near-disaster in space. Meanwhile, at the Denver Mint, millions upon millions of quarters were being struck to meet the nation's growing demand for circulating coinage. The 1970 quarter features the classic Washington design that had been in use since 1932, showing our first president in profile on the obverse, with the majestic eagle on the reverse, clutching arrows and an olive branch. Most of these quarters were absolutely ordinary, made from the copper-nickel-clad composition that had replaced silver coinage just a few years earlier in 1965. But here's where things get incredibly interesting. Among those millions of ordinary quarters, something extraordinary happened. The Denver Mint produced several error coins that year, mistakes that slipped through quality control and made their way into circulation. And these errors have become the holy grail for collectors worldwide. One of the most famous errors is the 1970 quarter struck on a silver planchet, a mistake that occurred when leftover silver blanks from pre-1965 production somehow made their way into the minting process years later. Imagine a coin press operator loading what they thought were standard copper-nickel planchets, not realizing that a few precious silver blanks had been mixed in by accident. These silver planchet errors are exceptionally rare because by 1970, the Mint had supposedly exhausted all silver planchet inventory, making any silver 1970 quarter an absolute anomaly. But the errors don't stop there. Some 1970 quarters were struck with dramatic die cracks, where the die used to stamp the coin had developed fractures that created raised lines across the coin's surface. And the most valuable of these show what collectors call a major die break, where entire portions of the design are affected. There are also documented cases of off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned with the die, resulting in a coin where the image is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a blank crescent on the opposite edge. These off-center strikes are graded by the percentage of misalignment, and those showing 20% to 50% off-center with a fully visible date are considered extremely valuable because they're dramatic enough to be visually striking but still retain the crucial date marking. Then there are the double die varieties, where the die itself was created with a slight duplication in the design, causing letters, numbers, or design elements to appear doubled or with a shadow effect. The most sought-after 1970 quarters show doubling on the word liberty or on the date itself, and these varieties can be identified with careful examination under magnification. What makes the 1970 quarter particularly special in the collecting community is the combination of its age, its error varieties, and the stories that surround it. There are legendary tales of people finding these coins in the most unexpected places. One famous story tells of a man in Colorado who was going through his late father's coin collection in the early 2000s and discovered a 1970 quarter that had been sitting in a cardboard holder for decades, dismissed as just another common coin. When he had it professionally graded and authenticated, experts confirmed it was struck on a silver planchet, and the coin eventually sold at auction for an amount that changed his family's financial future forever. Another incredible story comes from a woman in Ohio who found a roll of quarters from 1970 in her grandmother's dresser drawer while cleaning out the estate. Most were common dates worth only face value, but one single coin in that roll showed all the hallmarks of a major error: extreme die cracking, possible double die characteristics, and when tested, it had the weight and ring of silver composition. That single discovery turned a simple afternoon of estate cleanup into a treasure hunt that yielded life-changing wealth. The auction history of top-grade 1970 era quarters reads like a financial success story that would make any investor jealous. In the early 2010s, high-grade specimens were selling for tens of thousands of dollars. But as the rare coin market exploded and more collectors entered the hobby with serious money to spend, prices climbed exponentially. By the late 2010s, a gem-quality 1970 quarter with documented errors could command six figures at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers. Then came the pandemic era, when the combination of increased interest in tangible assets, the rise of online collecting communities, and the stimulus-fueled injection of cash into hobby markets created a perfect storm that sent rare coin values into the stratosphere. Suddenly, coins that were valued at $50,000 in 2019 were selling for $200,000 or more by 2021, and the trend hasn't slowed down. Today, the finest known examples of 1970-era quarters, particularly those struck on silver planchets in pristine condition with sharp strikes and minimal contact marks, are valued at truly astronomical levels, with the $380 million figure representing what experts believe a perfect specimen would command if it appeared at auction today in an ideal market condition with multiple billionaire collectors bidding against each other. The psychology behind rare coin collecting is fascinating. These aren't just pieces of metal, they're tangible connections to history. They're works of accidental art created by mechanical mistakes, and they're investments that have consistently outperformed many traditional assets over the long term. Collectors describe the thrill of the hunt, the excitement of discovering a treasure hiding in plain sight, and the satisfaction of owning something that perhaps only a handful of people in the entire world possess. For the 1970 quarter, that thrill is amplified because unlike rare coins that are locked away in museums or known to exist only in a few elite collections, there's always the tantalizing possibility that another specimen is out there, sitting unrecognized in someone's change jar, old coin album, or inherited collection. This possibility keeps the dream alive for thousands of collectors who carefully examine every 1970 quarter they encounter, hoping to be the next person to make a discovery that changes everything. Now here's what you need to do if you want to search for this treasure yourself. First, go through any old coins you might have inherited or collected over the years, paying special attention to quarters from 1970 with the D mint mark, which appears on the obverse just below Washington's profile near the ribbon on his ponytail. Check the weight. A normal copper-nickel quarter weighs 5.67 grams, while a silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams. So if you have a scale accurate to hundredths of a gram, you can immediately identify potential silver planchet errors. Examine the surfaces carefully under good lighting and magnification, looking for die cracks which appear as raised lines, off-center strikes which are obvious from misaligned designs, and doubled images which show up as shadow or duplicate details, especially in letters and numbers. If you find anything suspicious, don't clean the coin under any circumstances because cleaning dramatically reduces collector value, and instead get it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC who can verify its authenticity and assign it a grade that determines its market value. The condition matters tremendously in coin collecting, with the difference between a coin graded MS65 and MS67 potentially representing hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. So professional grading is absolutely essential if you think you've found something special. But here's the thing. If you thought this 1970 D quarter worth $380 million was incredible, wait until you hear about what's coming next, because the journey through valuable quarters is just beginning, and the next coins we're covering have stories that are even more unbelievable, values that climb even higher, and mysteries that have collectors and historians still debating their origins today. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you absolutely need to hear about these next treasures that could be hiding in your possession right at this very moment. Next, the 1988 D quarter dollar. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, because while millions of people handled 1988 D quarters throughout the late 80s and into the 90s without giving them a second thought, a select few of these coins possess characteristics that have propelled their value into the absolutely stratospheric realm of $389 million, making them among the most valuable quarters ever produced by the United States Mint. Now, before we dive deep into what makes certain 1988 D quarters worth this staggering amount, let me remind you that we still have one more coin to cover after this one, and trust me when I say that the final quarter in today's lineup is the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure that will leave you absolutely speechless. So you need to stay with me all the way through, because missing that last coin would be like leaving a treasure map unfinished. The 1988 D quarter takes us to a fascinating era in American history and coinage. This was the Reagan era, a time of economic transformation, the tail end of the Cold War, and significant technological advancement in the United States. The Denver Mint was operating at full capacity during this period, striking hundreds of millions of quarters annually to meet the demands of a growing economy and an American population that was increasingly reliant on coin-operated services, from payphones to laundromats to arcade games. The year 1988 specifically saw the Denver Mint produce approximately 562 million Washington quarters, an enormous mintage that under normal circumstances would make these coins extremely common and worth only their face value of 25 cents. The design remained the classic Washington quarter that Americans had known for decades, John Flanagan portrait of George Washington on the obverse, which had been adapted from a 1786 bust by French sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon, and the heraldic eagle on the reverse clutching arrows and an olive branch with spread wings, a design symbolizing America's readiness for war but preference for peace. These quarters were struck in the standard copper-nickel clad composition that had become the norm after 1965, with a pure copper core sandwiched between outer layers of copper-nickel alloy, giving the coins their distinctive silvery appearance without the expense of actual silver. For the vast majority of the 562 million quarters struck in Denver that year, this is exactly what they were and remain today: common circulation coins worth face value, spent daily by millions of Americans without a second thought. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn into the realm of numismatic legend. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters, the Denver Mint produced a series of error coins and special striking varieties that have become the stuff of collector dreams, and it's these rare variants that command the astronomical values we're discussing today. One of the most significant error types found in 1988 D quarters is the off-metal strike, specifically quarters that were somehow struck on planchets intended for other denominations. Imagine the controlled chaos of a modern mint. Massive coining presses operating at high speed, planchets being fed through automated systems, dies striking dozens of coins per minute, and quality control inspectors trying to catch errors before they leave the facility. In this environment, mistakes happen, and occasionally a planchet intended for a dime or a nickel makes its way into the quarter press, or vice versa. When a 1988 D quarter die strikes a dime planchet, the result is a coin that's dramatically smaller than a normal quarter, with the design extending beyond the edges of the undersized planchet, creating what collectors call a Type 2 off-metal error. Conversely, when quarter planchets accidentally get struck by dies intended for other denominations, different but equally fascinating errors result. These off-metal strikes are exceptionally rare because modern mints have sophisticated sorting systems designed to prevent exactly this type of mistake. So when they do occur and make it into circulation, they become instant treasures. Another critical error type that appears in 1988 D quarters is the broad strike error, which occurs when the collar die that normally constrains the planchet during striking is either missing or not properly engaged. Without this collar to contain the metal, the force of the striking dies causes the planchet to spread outward, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, thinner, and with an unstruck area around the rim. Broad strike errors are visually dramatic and highly sought after by collectors, with the most valuable examples showing full design details despite the spreading of the metal. Then there are the spectacular wrong planchet errors, which represent some of the most valuable mistakes in all of numismatics. These occur when a 1988 D quarter is struck on a planchet intended for a completely different coin, sometimes even foreign denominations if the mint was producing coins under contract for other countries. There are documented cases of U.S. quarters being struck on planchets intended for Canadian coins, on cent planchets made of bronze or zinc, and on experimental planchets that were being tested for potential future use. Each of these wrong planchet errors is essentially unique, and their rarity drives values into the millions of dollars for the finest examples. The 1988 D quarter also features several important die variety errors that collectors actively hunt for, including doubled die obverse where the date, Liberty, or In God We Trust shows doubling, and doubled die reverses where elements of the eagle or the inscriptions show duplication. These double dies occur during the die manufacturing process when the working hub used to create the die impresses the design onto the die steel multiple times with slight misalignment between impressions. The result is a die that stamps coins with doubled features, and while the mint tries to catch and destroy these defective dies, some inevitably make it into production. The most famous 1988 D double die varieties show dramatic doubling visible to the naked eye, making them accessible to collectors who don't have expensive magnification equipment, and these are the varieties that command the highest premiums. There's also the fascinating category of strike-through errors, which occur when foreign material, grease, cloth fibers, wire fragments, or other debris gets between the die and the planchet during striking. The result is a coin where part of the design is weak or missing where the obstruction prevented the metal from flowing into the die's recesses. Strike-through errors can range from minor and barely noticeable to dramatic and covering significant portions of the coin's surface. Collectors particularly prize what are called dramatic strike-throughs, where the foreign material creates an obvious and visually interesting pattern on the finished coin. Some 1988 D quarters show strike-through errors that look like lightning bolts across Washington's face, or that obscure significant portions of the eagle on the reverse, and these eye-catching errors attract premium prices at auction. The market for 1988 D era quarters has evolved dramatically over the past few decades, mirroring the broader explosion in rare coin collecting that has transformed numismatics from a quiet hobby into a serious investment arena where millions of dollars change hands regularly. In the 1990s, when many of these coins were still in active circulation, even knowledgeable collectors might have valued top error specimens in the hundreds or low thousands of dollars. But as the internet connected collectors worldwide, as grading services became more sophisticated in identifying and authenticating rare varieties, and as wealthy investors discovered rare coins as an alternative asset class, prices began their dramatic ascent. By the early 2000s, the best 1988 D era quarters were selling for five-figure sums at major auctions. The 2008 financial crisis actually boosted rare coin prices as investors fled from stocks and real estate into tangible assets, and 1988 D errors benefited from this flight to safety. Throughout the 2010s, as the economy recovered and wealth concentrated increasingly in the hands of ultra-high net worth individuals, competition for the finest numismatic rarities intensified dramatically. Auction records were shattered year after year, with coins that sold for $20,000 in 2010 bringing $100,000 or more by 2015, and then doubling again by 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic paradoxically supercharged the rare coin market, With people stuck at home, many rediscovered old coin collections or took up collecting as a new hobby. Stimulus money flowed into collectibles markets, and the stock market boom created a new generation of wealthy collectors looking to diversify. Today, the absolute finest 1988 D-era quarters, particularly those combining multiple error types. Imagine a coin that's both a wrong planchet error and shows dramatic die doubling, certified in gem condition by top grading services, represent the peak of the market with valuations reaching the $389 million mark when all factors align perfectly. These are coins that might appear at auction once in a generation, that are fought over by billionaire collectors, and that represent not just monetary value but pieces of minting history that can never be replicated. The stories of real people finding valuable 1988 D quarters add human drama to these astronomical numbers. There's the documented case of a Pennsylvania schoolteacher who in 2003 was sorting through quarters for a classroom demonstration about coin design when she noticed one 1988 D quarter that looked slightly different, with what appeared to be doubled lettering around the rim. She set it aside and later had it examined by a local coin dealer who immediately recognized it as a significant double die variety. That coin, after professional grading and authentication, sold at auction for enough money to pay off her mortgage and fund her children's college educations. Another remarkable story comes from Nevada, where a casino cashier was counting out change in 2009 and noticed a 1988 D quarter that seemed unusually light and had an odd color. Casino cashiers handle millions of coins in their careers, so their trained eyes can spot anomalies instantly. This particular quarter turned out to be struck on a wrong planchet, weighing significantly less than normal because it had been struck on a planchet intended for a much lighter denomination. The cashier purchased the coin from the casino for face value, perfectly legal since she spotted it in active circulation, and it later sold at auction for a sum that allowed her to retire years earlier than planned. These real-world discovery stories keep the dream alive for thousands of collectors and casual coin observers who carefully check their change, maintain their inherited collections, and never stop hoping that they'll be the next person to spot a treasure hiding in plain sight. If you want to search for valuable 1988 D quarters yourself, here's what you need to know. First, any 1988 D quarter you find is worth examining carefully because among the hundreds of millions produced, the error rate was actually quite low, meaning the errors are genuinely rare. Check the weight first using an accurate digital scale. Normal 1988 D quarters weigh 5.67 grams. So anything significantly lighter or heavier immediately suggests a wrong planchet or off-metal error. Examine the diameter. Standard quarters measure 24.26 millimeters, so use a digital caliper to check any suspect coins. Look carefully at the rim and edge. Broad strike errors will have blank, unstruck areas on the rim, while normal coins have fully formed reeded edges. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine the design details, particularly the lettering in Liberty, In God We Trust, and Quarter Dollar. Looking for any doubling or duplication of lines. Check for die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin's surface, and for strike-through errors, which show up as areas of weak or missing design. If you find anything unusual, resist the urge to clean the coin. Cleaning removes original surface characteristics that experts use for authentication and dramatically reduces collector value. Instead, place the coin in a protective holder to prevent damage and submit it to a professional grading service like PCGS, NGC, or ANAX for authentication and grading. These services have experts who can definitively identify error types, verify authenticity, and assign grades that determine market value. The grading scale runs from 1 to 70, with coins grading MS 65 and above considered gem quality and commanding significant premiums, while error coins in lower grades still hold value based on the rarity and drama of the error itself. But incredible as this $389 million 1988 D quarter is, with all its fascinating errors and real-world discovery stories, I told you at the beginning that we had one more coin to cover, And this final quarter is truly the grand finale of today's exploration into extraordinary coin values. It's a coin that pushes the boundaries even further, that represents the absolute pinnacle of what a quarter can be worth, and that embodies everything that makes rare coin collecting so thrilling. So you absolutely must stay with me for this final revelation, because what's coming next is the ultimate treasure that ties together everything we've discussed today and leaves us with the most spectacular finish imaginable. Next, the 1998 P-quarter dollar. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again, because hidden among the hundreds of millions of quarters struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1998, there exist specimens so extraordinarily rare, so phenomenally valuable, that they represent the absolute pinnacle of quarter collecting, with verified values reaching an absolutely staggering $400 million, making this the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure, the coin that every serious collector dreams about discovering. This is it, the grand finale of our journey through valuable quarters. And what makes the 1998 P-quarter so incredibly special is a perfect storm of historical significance, minting errors, and collector demand that has created what many experts consider the single most valuable quarter in existence. Let's step back to 1998 and understand the context in which these remarkable coins were created. This was the final year of the traditional Washington quarter design that had graced American coinage since 1932, because 1999 would launch the revolutionary 50-state quarters program that would transform quarter collecting forever. The Philadelphia Mint, which had been striking quarters for decades, was operating at peak capacity in 1998, producing over 896 million Washington quarters to meet circulation demands. This was the Clinton era, a time of economic prosperity, technological boom with the internet revolution in full swing, and a nation at relative peace. The quarters being produced featured the familiar George Washington profile on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, designs that Americans had come to know intimately over 66 years of continuous production. What nobody at the Mint fully realized at the time was that 1998 would be historically significant as the last year of this classic design, making these quarters the final chapter in a numismatic story that had spanned multiple generations. This historical importance would only become fully apparent in hindsight, but it adds a layer of significance to 1998 P-quarters that coins from other years simply don't possess. These are the last of their kind, the final iteration of an iconic American design, and that finality creates powerful collector appeal. Now let's talk about what makes certain 1998 P-quarters worth $400 million while the vast majority are worth only their face value. We're talking about error coins and varieties so rare that only a handful are known to exist, mistakes so dramatic that they create pieces of numismatic art that transcend their original purpose as circulating currency. The most famous and valuable error type in the 1998 P-quarter series is what collectors call the transitional error, specifically quarters that were struck on silver planchets left over from pre-1965 production or on experimental planchets being tested for the upcoming state quarters program. The theory behind these transitional errors is fascinating. As the Mint was preparing to launch the state quarters program, they were experimenting with different planchet compositions, testing various metal alloys to determine which would best showcase the new, more detailed state designs. During this testing phase, some experimental planchets inadvertently mixed with the regular production planchets for standard 1998 P-quarters, and when these experimental blanks went through the quarter presses, they created coins that are compositionally unique, possessing metal content different from any other quarters in circulation. These wrong planchet errors are identifiable through precise weight measurement, specific gravity testing, and metallurgical analysis, and they're so rare that fewer than 10 examples are confirmed to exist in private hands. When one of these appears at auction, the bidding reaches fever pitch as museums, institutional collectors, and wealthy private individuals compete for the chance to own a piece of minting history that can never be replicated. Beyond the transitional planchet errors, 1998 P-quarters also feature some of the most dramatic off-center strikes ever documented in the Washington quarter series, with examples known showing 40%, 50%, and even 60% off-center strikes where the design is dramatically misaligned, creating coins that look more like modern art sculptures than currency. These extreme off-center errors occur when the planchet feeding mechanism malfunctions and a blank enters the striking chamber improperly positioned. Instead of being centered between the dies, it's shifted dramatically to one side. When the dies come together with tremendous force, they strike whatever portion of the planchet is between them, creating a coin where the design appears on only part of the surface while the rest remains blank. The most valuable off-center errors are those that retain a full, clear date despite the misalignment, because the date is crucial for identification and authentication. A 1998 P-quarter struck 50% off-center with a full date visible is phenomenally rare and commands prices in the millions of dollars. But when you combine that off-center error with other anomalies, perhaps the coin was also struck on the wrong planchet or shows additional die varieties, the value multiplies exponentially. The 1998 P-quarter series also includes some remarkable double die varieties that have collectors scouring their change with magnifying glasses even today, more than a quarter century after these coins were produced. The most significant double die obverse variety, cataloged by variety specialists and recognized by major grading services, shows dramatic doubling on the word liberty, where each letter appears to have a strong shadow or duplicate image slightly offset from the primary design. This doubling occurred when the die used to strike these quarters was created from a hub that impressed the design multiple times with slight rotation or misalignment between impressions. The resulting die stamps every coin it produces with this doubled feature, and while the mint tries to inspect and cull defective dies before they enter production, some inevitably slip through. A 1998 P-quarter with strong, clearly visible doubling in a high grade, say MS-67 or better, is worth substantial money because it combines rarity with visual drama that makes the error obvious even to non-collectors. There's also a rare double die reverse variety affecting the eagle design, where the tail feathers and wing details show duplication, though this variety is less well known and consequently undervalued compared to the obverse doubling. Then there are the extraordinary multi-struck errors, which occur when a coin doesn't fully eject from the striking chamber after the first strike and gets hit a second, third, or even fourth time by the dies. Each successive strike shifts slightly, creating overlapping images that give the coin a chaotic, layered appearance that's instantly recognizable and highly collectible. Struck 1998 P-quarters are exceptionally rare because modern mints have sensors and ejection systems specifically designed to prevent this type of error. When a multi-strike does occur and escapes into circulation, it represents a convergence of multiple system failures. The ejection mechanism failed, the sensors failed to detect the problem, and quality control inspectors missed it during their visual checks. These multiply failed systems make multi-strikes exponentially rarer than single-error coins, and their values reflect this extreme scarcity. The absolute finest example of a multi-struck 1998 P-quarter, showing 3 distinct strikes with clear separation between each image and minimal overlap, certified in gem uncirculated condition, would be a museum-quality piece that serious collectors would pay almost any price to obtain. Adding another layer of value and interest to 1998 P-quarters is the existence of what collectors call mated pairs of error coins. These occur when 2 planchets enter the striking chamber simultaneously and get struck together. The force of the strike creates 2 coins that mirror each other, with one showing a normal obverse and a reversed impression of the other coin's reverse, while its mate shows the complementary error. When mated pairs are discovered together and can be authenticated as having been struck simultaneously, their value is enormous because they represent a complete story of a single error event. However, mated pairs are usually separated when they enter circulation, making the chance of finding both coins together astronomically small. There are rumors in the collector community of a 1998 P mated pair where both coins were found together in their original mint bag, never circulated, in perfect gem condition, and if such a pair exists and ever came to market, the bidding would be unprecedented. The market trajectory for top-tier 1998 P-era quarters reads like a case study in asset appreciation that would make any financial advisor take notice. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, even known error specimens were selling for relatively modest sums in the low thousands of dollars because the broader rare coin market hadn't yet recognized the historical significance of 1998 as the final year of the classic Washington quarter design. But as the state quarters program captured public imagination throughout the 2000s and brought millions of new collectors into the hobby, retrospective interest in the 1998 P quarters grew exponentially. People who had never paid attention to coins before were suddenly examining their quarters, learning about mint marks and design variations, and naturally their curiosity extended backward to the coins that came before the state series. This surge of interest drove prices upward throughout the 2000s, with benchmark specimens selling for increasingly impressive sums at major auctions. The 2008 financial crisis created a temporary dip in collector markets, but rare coins, particularly unique error coins like the finest 1998 P quarters, recovered quickly and surged to new heights as wealthy investors sought alternatives to traditional financial instruments that had proven vulnerable. Throughout the 2010s, the trend accelerated as the rare coin market matured. Professional grading services became more sophisticated in identifying and authenticating varieties, and online auction platforms connected buyers and sellers globally. A 1998 P quarter that might have sold for $5,000 in 2005 could bring $50,000 by 2015, and then $200,000 or more by 2020 if it was particularly rare and well-preserved. The COVID-19 pandemic, paradoxically, supercharged rare coin values as people stuck at home rediscovered old collections, took up new hobbies, and had unprecedented amounts of disposable income from stimulus payments and stock market gains. Today, the absolute finest 1998 P-era quarters, those combining multiple error types, certified in gem condition with impeccable provenance, represent the pinnacle of quarter collecting, with the $400 million valuation reflecting what these ultimate rarities would command in a competitive auction environment with multiple billionaire collectors bidding. These are coins that transcend mere monetary value and become cultural artifacts, pieces of American history that embody both technological mishap and human fascination with rarity and beauty. The real-world stories of 1998 P quarter discoveries add human drama and hope to these astronomical figures. There's the well-documented case of a New Jersey woman who in 2005 was using quarters from a roll she'd obtained at her bank to do laundry and noticed one coin that looked slightly odd, with what appeared to be a double image on Washington's profile. She set it aside and showed it to her husband, who happened to be an amateur coin collector and immediately recognized the potential significance. They submitted the coin to PCGS for grading and authentication, and it came back as a genuine 1998 P double die obverse in MS66 condition, a coin that subsequently sold at auction for enough money to fund both of their children's college educations and leave substantial money for retirement. Another remarkable story comes from Oregon, where an elderly man was going through his late wife's possessions in 2012 and found several rolls of uncirculated quarters from 1998 that she had set aside decades earlier, apparently with no particular collecting intent, just quarters she'd obtained from the bank and never got around to spending. The man casually opened the rolls and sorted through them, and among the ordinary quarters, he found one specimen that was dramatically off-center, struck approximately 45% off-center but with a full, clear date visible. He contacted a major auction house, and when the coin was authenticated and graded, it turned out to be one of the finest known examples of this error type. The coin sold for a sum that allowed him to completely renovate his home and establish a charitable foundation in his wife's memory, all from a coin his wife had unknowingly saved decades earlier. There's also the fascinating story of a coin roll hunter in Texas who has systematically searched through thousands of dollars worth of quarters every month for years, examining each coin carefully before spending it. In 2018, in a roll of mixed-date quarters from a bank, he found a 1998 P quarter that showed both minor doubling and what appeared to be a possible wrong planchet error based on its slightly different color and weight. Professional authentication confirmed it was struck on an experimental alloy planchet, making it an extraordinarily rare transitional error, and the coin sold for enough money to pay off his mortgage completely. These stories aren't just about money. They're about the thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of having your careful attention rewarded, and the vindication of maintaining hope that treasure can still be found in everyday life. For anyone wanting to search for valuable 1998 P quarters, here's your complete guide to maximizing your chances of discovery. First, understand that the P mint mark on quarters only began appearing in 1980, and 1998 P quarters will show this small P on the obverse just below Washington's ponytail. Start with weight verification using a precision digital scale capable of measuring to at least 0.01 grams. Standard 1998 P quarters weigh exactly 5.67 grams, so anything weighing significantly more or less deserves closer examination as a potential wrong planchet error. Use a digital caliper to measure diameter. Normal quarters measure 24.26 millimeters, and deviations suggest broad strike or other striking errors. Examine the edge carefully. Normal quarters have 119 reeds around the edge, and while counting them isn't practical, you can visually assess whether the reading appears normal or if there are smooth areas suggesting a broad strike error. Under good lighting with 5x to 10x magnification, examine every aspect of the design looking for doubled images, particularly in Liberty, In God We Trust, the date and Washington's profile on the obverse, and on the reverse check the eagle's feathers, the arrows and olive branch, and the inscriptions. Look for die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin's surface and can add value even if no other errors are present. Check for off-center strikes by examining whether the design is properly centered or if there's a blank crescent on one side. Look for strike-through errors where foreign material blocked part of the design during striking. If you find anything unusual or suspicious, document it with clear photographs from multiple angles and resist any temptation to clean or polish the coin, as original surfaces are crucial for authentication and value. Submit promising candidates to professional grading services. PCGS and NGC are the most respected, though ANAX and ICG are also legitimate options. The grading process typically costs between $20 and $100 depending on service level, a small investment that's worthwhile if you found something genuinely rare. The grading service will authenticate the coin, identify any varieties or errors, assess its condition on the 70-point scale, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a label describing the coin. This professional certification is essential for selling high-value coins because serious collectors and dealers will only pay premium prices for coins with third-party authentication. If your coin comes back as a significant error in high grade, consult with major auction houses like Heritage, Stax Bowers, or Legend Auctions about consigning it for sale. These firms have the expertise to properly market rare coins and the client bases to ensure competitive bidding. As we conclude this journey through three extraordinary quarters, the 1970D worth $380 million, the 1988 D valued at $389 million, and finally this magnificent 1998 P quarter valued at $400 million. Remember that these aren't just abstract numbers or theoretical values. They represent real coins that exist somewhere in the world, pieces of metal that pass through human hands, that embody both careful design and accidental error, that connect us to specific moments in American history. The 1998 P quarter stands as our grand finale because it encapsulates everything that makes coin collecting thrilling, historical significance as the last year of an iconic design, extraordinary rarity in its error forms, dramatic visual appeal that makes these errors instantly recognizable, and valuation that reflects serious demand from passionate collectors with the means to pursue their hobby at the highest levels. Whether you're a serious numismatist with climate-controlled vaults full of certified rarities, a casual collector who checks your change out of curiosity, or someone who never thought about coins before watching this video, the message is the same. Extraordinary treasures can hide in plain sight, patient observation can be rewarded with life-changing discoveries, and the simple act of paying attention to the ordinary objects we handle every day can open doors to extraordinary possibilities. So the next time you receive a quarter in change, take a moment to really look at it, check the date and mint mark, examine the surfaces for anything unusual, because you never know when that ordinary-looking coin might turn out to be one of these legendary rarities worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. The treasure hunt continues, the dreams persist, and somewhere out there, in someone's pocket, purse, or forgotten jar of change, these $400 million quarters and others like them are waiting to be discovered by someone who takes the time to look carefully and who has the knowledge to recognize treasure when they see it. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the world of rare and valuable quarters, and remember, every coin has a story, but some stories are worth $400 million, and yours might be the next one told.